Hey, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Light It Up. I am your host, Dr. Aginah Musherah. I am so very excited about this week's episode because I have a very special guest who's more special than all of the other guests that I've had on my podcast since I launched it 3 years ago. This week, I have the pleasure of having my wonderful mother, Aminah Muhammad, on the podcast. Thank you, Mother, for being a guest. Welcome to Light It Up. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, and thank you for having me on your podcast.
You're welcome. So, this clearly isn't something that we would traditionally do because you normally just listen to and watch my podcast and share the podcast with everybody on Facebook and YouTube and things of that nature. But I wanted to have you on as a guest because you just recently celebrated your 71st birthday. And so I wanted to have an opportunity to have you on and just kind of talk with you about your experience as being my mother of your wonderful daughter for the last 46 years, um, being a mom, being a wife for 51 years, almost 50 years, and just give you an opportunity to kind of share some things because rarely do people have an opportunity to see you on the camera. So here we are.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for the invitation to speak on your podcast and to tell you a little something about myself as I journey into my 71st birth anniversary date. And I must say that my 70th year has really been an experience and a growing experience for me, enjoying my life and being thankful for my two beautiful children and my six grandchildren. And this year, I have been dedicating my time to a passion that I love, which is CROW, the Coalition for the Remembrance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that was founded in the basement of our home in 1986. So as I spend my time now, I have been retired for many years. I volunteer myself 4 to 5 days a week at CROW, making sure that the legacy of your father is being remembered and continued. And talking to my grandchildren and doing whatever I can do for my family to make sure that we're all comfortable.
All right. Something that you said that kind of sparked a question because I want to be fully transparent. I did not give you any pre-scripted questions. So you don't know what I'm going to ask. We're just going to have a conversation. Um, but something that you said about being retired. Now, what the people don't know, and we could probably dive into that a little later, but you've been retired for a real long time,
Mhm.
technically speaking, as it relates to punching a clock 9 to 5 for someone else.
Yeah.
If I recall correctly, you either retired at 38 years old or 39. Which one was it?
I retired in 1974,
Ma, you did not retire in 1974.
1994.
It's okay. So, 1994, I graduated from high school and I was 16 years old. That's right. Ooh.
Yes. I,
I
I retired in
remember.
1994 to come home to be a grandmother, and my whole life I have sacrificed for my children and my grandchildren.
So let me ask you about that then, because you used the word sacrificed your entire life. So your whole life has been revolved around your children, your grandchildren in some way,
My
or
whole
any other way?
life has been resolved around my family, my husband, my children, my grandchildren, and the Crow organization. That has been my life up until this year. I have finally decided to find myself. And as I am discovering myself and finding a new life for myself without my husband, I have begun to find that pro is really my passion that has been in my life for over 35 years. And I can't think of anything else that I would rather be doing than working with the members of Crow, making sure that Crow is continuing in the vision in which your father intended it to.
Okay. So why don't you tell the people, because you're originally from Butler, Alabama, which is a town that's close to near Meridian, Mississippi, for anybody who wants to find it on the map. And you moved to Chicago, and we can talk about, your upbringing and childhood, but you moved to Chicago at the age of 14 to live with your sister, correct?
Correct.
So why don't you talk to us about that, and in terms of what was the reason why you moved from Butler to Chicago to live with your older sister?
Okay, growing up in the South, I had many questions that I would ask my grandmother and my father. And in the 60s, segregation began. And I was the type of child who had many questions. And most of my questions did not agree with the way of life that they had been brought up in the South. So to keep me from getting into trouble, from getting my father or my family into trouble, they decided to send me to Chicago to live with my sister. And I came to Chicago to live with my sister in 1968. My sister had recently got married, but I would always come up on vacations prior to coming to live in Chicago with her. And after arriving in Chicago, I attended Western House Vocational High School. And later on in life, on a summer vacation, I met your father. And we met on this summer vacation. And I went back home for my last year of school in the South. And in 1968, I relocated back to Chicago, and he had graduated from high school. And we reunited again. And after dating for about 3 years, we ended up getting married, and I gave birth to my first child, Jamil.
You all remained married until your husband, my father, passed away. So let me ask you this, because since you do have, you were clearly, you kept your marriage vows, death do us part, and all of that. And, we live in a society now where the divorce rate is just astronomical. And what advice can you give, or what would you say the difference is? I'll say that between how men and women, as far as their relationships and marriage, is compared now to back then, because the divorce rates weren't high during the time that you got married and were married, right? And now people get divorced like it's just something to do. And maybe that's not the right way to phrase it, but do you think that there is a difference um, in how people um, deal with their relationships and marriage? Do you think that people don't take the marriage vows as seriously now, or what do you think it is that contributes to the high rate of divorce, since there doesn't seem to be that long lasting, the longevity of marriages anymore?
Great question. I would say during the time when I got married, it wasn't, we got married because we loved each other and because we had the same vision. We wanted to work together in life and to have a better life than what we was brought up to be, to make a better life for our children. And I think that today's relationship is quite different because now I think a lot of people, the first thing is your finance. What can you bring to the table? And whereas our relationship, we work together to bring things to the table, to grow together, and to save together. And I think today, marriage is totally different, and the commitment is not the same. My commitment when I got married was to until death do us part, and that's what happened. I grew up wanting to get married. I wanted all my children to have the same father, but I think growing up in the South gave us the we saw that our parents was married for a long time. There were no divorces, not as much when I was coming up. And my goal was to always be a wife, a mother. And that is what I've been blessed to do, in my life.
So, do you think that, because one could also say that with your generation, with baby boomers, as far as women are concerned, their ability to, I guess, maybe they needed to be in a marriage or a relationship because financially they needed the support. Whereas with today's women, as far as being able to secure, jobs that allow women to be financially stable and not have to rely on another person or a man financially, do you think that has a role to play in, you know, as far as a person either choosing to get married or deciding that there are certain things that they will not accept in their marriage, and they choose not to remain in a marriage because they don't have to take certain treatment, and they can move on and take care of themselves?
Yes, I think there's a difference, but during my time of being married, it wasn't that I was marrying because I needed someone to take care of me.
Oh, I wasn't suggesting that. What I was
So
suggesting,
okay, but I was saying that some people get married because they need someone to take care of them, but that wasn't my case. And so I think with the background and the way of life that I had, when I came into Islam under the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I had seen that way of life with my relatives in the South, although my mother passed when I was 5 years old and my grandmother raised me. But the family structure, my aunts and uncles, they all was married. My aunts was at home taking care of the children, and the husbands was out working, providing for them. So that was the type of life that I grew up with. And that was the type of life that I wanted for myself. Although I knew I had to work for myself because I wanted more for myself than I wanted more for my children than I had for myself. Growing up in the South, not realizing that uh, the standard that I look at now, we was poor, but we wasn't poor because we had food, clothing, and shelter. And you want to make a better life for your child. So we both worked together. We both saved together. And we had a vision of how we wanted our lives to be.
Now, my question to you is something that you said about sacrificing your life for your children and your family. Do you have any regrets? Like, do you feel like, because now, you said at 70, you started to try to discover who you are. That's a pretty long time to wait to figure out or try to discover who you are.
Well, I was busy being a wife and a mother, and I was doing what I love to do. I have no regrets about doing what I did in my life. But after the departure of your father, and my children grown and they having children, it left a void in my life. And I needed, thank God for the pandemic. The pandemic came and it gave me a chance to reassess myself and to look back on my life and discover me and for me to make the decisions to do what I want to do. I am free and I can do whatever I want to do. And when I was married, raising children, you could not do what you wanted to do, but I wasn't even thinking about doing anything else other than being a mother to my children and a wife to my husband. That was what my life was. And I enjoyed every moment of it. And now, as I will always go through the grief of losing my husband, and I have my good days and I have my bad days, but this year was the best year of my life. And I've had more happy days than sad days. And sometimes you can be happy for one moment and grief will hit you and you go back. But I can always bring myself back to thank Allah for blessing me to be in the position that I'm in today, and for blessing me to make sure that I take care of myself, and all the sacrifices that I have made was good. And now I have to live my life because my children, they are blessed. They have children. And I no longer have to, I don't worry as much as I used to about my family. Now I worry about keeping me healthy and alive so that I can make my 100-year in life as my father did.
So, what are your plans for 71?
My plans for 71 is to travel. My first travel will be going on a cruise to the Bahamas, something that I never was interested in, going on a cruise. But now I'm trying to experience different things in my life. I'm beginning to get different interests in my life. And I am going to be traveling more this year, but I am also going to continue to volunteer my time with Crow because I enjoy being there, because that's where your father would want me to do. And I can recall your dad saying that Crow will continue because it's a coalition and it will be continued by people who love the organization, who love the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And all he wanted people to do was to learn about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and to love him as he loved him. And I must say that the people that we have working with us at Crow on a daily basis. No one have to call them to tell them to open up. No one have to call us to ask us to come in. We come in because this is what we love doing. And we have a wonderful group of people at Crow, although I cannot call everyone's name.
Well, but if I'm not mistaken, also, I mean, it's not like this is something new for you because you've always helped with Crow since its inception, correct?
Yes, but I've always been in the background, and I'm still continuing to be in the background because I want to be a helper in whatever way I can. But I am moving out of my comfort zone. And a matter of fact, Brother Mandine interviewed me on the television show, one of my first interviews. And now I am having an interview with you. And I
Gonna
think
get a talk show next?
I am moving out of my comfort zone, and I have a vision and a plan for something that I'm going to do, but I'm not going to reveal it at this time. But I am moving out of my comfort zone.
Okay, sounds good. Is there anything, well, you said you can't tell us about what you have planned, which I think is a great idea. Wait until it's done and you're ready to reveal whatever it is that you'd like to reveal to us. So maybe I'll have you come back and you can talk about that. Um, but what, I guess, what has been the greatest lesson that you've learned um, over the last 71 years of your life that you can share with us?
The greatest lesson that I have learned is to love myself first and to always put God first in my life. Because, as I said, I made a lot of sacrifices in my life, but it wasn't until the departure of your father that I got the real hit in life, because he was always my protector and our protector. And after his departing, I just have to slow down and be patient with myself and to love myself and take care of myself. That's what I have learned for the past 71 years.
Okay. Well, I think that's a great way to end our conversation because certainly having the reminder of being patient with oneself is very important because there are many people um, who lack patience and who want things to come instantly, or who for that matter don't take time to get to know themselves and love themselves either. So I think that's a great lesson that you've learned. So thank you for sharing with us. So, as we wrap up our conversation, are there any other closing remarks that you'd like to share?
Yes, I would like to say to you, I am so very proud of you. I am so very proud of my son. And for you and your podcast, this is something that your father always would talk about. And I can see you are so much like him, and you going in the direction in which he was going. He had his television show, you have your podcast, and eventually my son, I know he always suggested to him to have a blog. So I'm hoping that one day he have the time, although he is helping with Crow in the background. But I hope that one day he will have his blog, and both of you will, fulfill the vision that your dad had for you. And I know that he will be proud of you and Jamil. And I would just like to thank you and Jamil for during the transition of your dad, that you all took over things and did things exactly the way that I would have wanted you to do it. And I appreciate everything that you did. And but in closing, I would just like to say that I'm proud of you and what you are doing and the direction in which your podcast is going this year.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate those words. I do. So happy birth anniversary to you again. And thank you for all that you do, because you certainly have been an example to me as far as how I am as a mother to my own children. So just want to publicly say thank you. I appreciate you and all that you do and have done and continue to do, specifically for me and my 3 wonderful children. So thank you very much. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this week's episode of Light It Up. I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to this kind of personal and engaging chat with my mother in honor of her 71st birthday, because it's Libra season. I've turned over the reins of Virgo season to you Libras. So as you all celebrate your birthdays during the last part of, during the month of October, enjoy. Uh, wish you all the very best for a wonderful year. And so thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Light It Up. Please feel free to share this episode with a family or friend. And don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to the podcast. You can check out the podcast every Tuesday, where a new episode is released at 7 a.m. weekly. And you can find Light It Up podcast on all streaming platforms. So wherever you choose to listen to your favorite podcast, which should be Light It Up, check me out next week and see who I may have as a guest. So until next time, please remember to continue to light it up and shine bright like a diamond. Thanks for joining me this week on Light It Up. Make sure you visit my website at www.lightituppodcast.com or www.aginahmuhammad.com. You can also find me on social media using the handle at Light It Up Podcast. If you like what you've heard, please be sure to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, I'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or you can simply tell a friend about the show. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for a new episode. Until next time, light it up and shine bright like a diamond.